Welcome to eSports Sedition, Episode 5. I'm Alex Fletcher, and today's topic is the fallacy of volunteer work in the esports world. And the background for the talk today is I was on Twitter this weekend and I had an interesting dialogue with two members from esportcoaching.net, which is a new venture that seeks to professionalize the coaching world in esports by providing resources, training, and information for coaches of all stripes within esports. Where I was posed the question, or at least I was asked, what are my thoughts about volunteer work in the esports domain? And as anyone who's ever been involved with the space knows, volunteer work is par the course for any progression in the esports world. Everyone has or is or will be involved with unpaid work at some point in time if they're serious about working in esports. And when I was asked the question, it took me aback because I'm like, well, of course there's volunteer work. It's a great thing. Esports is a meritocracy. That's what drives the community. There are a lot of talented people out there who do a lot of great and cool things for free. But it also uncovered a gap that exists. And as a search and recruiting professional at Intiva Group, I know for sure that the actual number of volunteer positions is entirely disproportionate to the number of paid part-time or full-time positions. And at this stage in the industry's growth, I don't think that's a bad thing. However, what needs to be done is more volunteer work has to be linked to career paths, or at least paid positions. In other words, the volunteer positions that are offered, and as part of the story that I started this podcast with, I mentioned a conversation on Twitter. Well, I retweeted a link from Fnatic for a volunteer analyst position. And thinking, hey, this is a great opportunity to get involved with a super high quality esports organization. Anyone who is interested in breaking in or continuing their advancement in the esports world should take heed. But it struck me that, yes, it's a great position with a great org, but there needs to be a stronger progression from unpaid to potentially paid jobs, titles, career paths. And if you look at traditional sports, their entire model is built on internships. So it's not that unpaid work doesn't have a place. Far from it. It has a very viable place because when you're dealing with an industry that's filled with a lot of passionate, talented candidates, you have to have a way of filtering out those who are serious about doing the work and those who maybe are just passionate supporters, followers, fans, etc. But traditional sports does a great job of making it clear that, hey, if you want to work in this industry, you're going to have to do some work for free at some point in time. But the caveat is if you take these positions, you're put in standing or good standing for consideration as a direct hire. In other words, once you do a good job, you're now in line to get hired in a full-time capacity. Now, esports hasn't been along anywhere as an industry. It hasn't been along anywhere close to the amount of time that a lot of traditional sports have. However, I think that link should still be made. I think you should see volunteer positions put into a track. And this track doesn't necessarily mean if you do well, you're going to get hired, but it should be put into if you do this job well, we're going to retain your work. We're going to retain your profile as a candidate for future reference, at least. such that volunteer work that's done for any organization, company, doesn't just get swept to the wayside 6 months to a year later. And that's a big deal when you're looking at candidates potentially putting forward their best effort and not getting any monetary compensation back, from the perspective that the better volunteer positions are held in esteem, or the higher esteem they're held by the general community, the better quality candidates you'll attract. And as the industry grows as a whole, it's going to be important to maintain the credibility of volunteering. The last thing you want is to have, people think that, or community members think that, oh, well, it's volunteer. I've been volunteering here. I've been doing this. I've been doing that. And it kind of never means anything. You want to keep unpaid work held in high esteem, because it can and should be a part of a very solid career path for those involved. So hopefully we'll see a better focus by companies and organizations in the esports world when it comes to creating these solid paths from unpaid to paid positions. And that's all I have for you guys today. Thanks.